Welcome back to Twin Tech 2020 here at Impact House, Chicago. I'm quite pleased to share that later on, Izzy Idonije and Howard Tallman, our own Howard Tallman, a member of the Twin board and a co-founder, will share with you the purpose and mission of Impact House. What's going on here? Why are we here? Because there is a reason we're here. In addition to being a beautiful location set in front of an L station in Chicago. Yes, that is the train that just serendipitously passed right behind me during this segment. We're so pleased to be here, as you'll learn later from Izzy and Howard. And a thanks to Camden and Barrett for all their effort to help make this happen. I have a lot of thanks to share this morning, we all do, but a number of people and organizations in particular. First of all, I'd like to send a note out, a thought out, to all the small business owners and leaders in the world. This has been a trying, traumatic time for many, and if you think about it, most small events, even some somewhat larger events, are really just small businesses. Many have frayed under the pressure of the crisis. Some have gone away and others have reinvented. Thankfully, here at Twin, we've reinvented not only the event, as you're seeing here, which means we're trying new things and pushing the envelope and doing some things well and other things we're learning, but also transforming the structure of this organization. We're becoming an ongoing membership-based group with activities throughout the year, not just speakers on a screen, a lot more than that. And our core is the connective to drive a serendipity engine to advance purpose in the world. Your purpose, our purposes. And so I urge you and encourage you to remain involved throughout the year and help us build the vision for the future of this organization. Help us co-create it. Thanks to all of you who have, by virtue of you being here, already become a Twin connector or perhaps a Twin patron. In addition to our lead sponsors, who I'll come back to, our charter patrons so far this year for Twin are Dave Ormisher, Scott and Margie Philstrip, whom I met as an undergrad, by the way, at Northwestern in 1988. Chandra Devam, Bob Hendrickson, and Guy Kazarian. Thanks so much for enabling us to do and be what we want to do and be. As always, a thanks to the board, Karina, Howard, Lee, Peter, Anna, our Futures team. The Futures team was sort of like a kitchen cabinet that came together early in the crisis and said, how can we re-envision the future? And every Friday for 2 months, we met to talk about various paths. And it's because of them and our board and others that we reached out to that we are where we are today. So a big thanks to Chip Bailey, Chris Gebhardt, Alana Sondel, Guy Kazarian. I also want to underscore how impossible all of this would be without the team. And it's a very big team for this event. It's a small team compared to some of your organizations, but for us, it's a big-hearted team. You've all received emails from Jen and Katie and Andrew and Jill. But there are two organizations I as well want to point out, Media Vision Productions and also Marketing for Wellness. So Alana Sandel and Dimitri Sandel at Marketing for Wellness have really stepped up in a big way for us this year. They've transformed our website, our social media presence, and a lot more, and we owe them a lot, and we're very thankful for that. And Media Vision Productions, all of our longtime Twinians know Brian Stevens and the team he brings together every year. They make all this possible, and this year I want to underscore that there are some technologies we're using right now, and that others are using as well, that have just been introduced in the past year or so. So some of these things are new and we're learning through this process. And it's been great to grow with Media Vision Productions over the past decade. And we're looking forward to more in the future. Our sponsors. One of the things that I value so much about Twin and about our sponsors is that our sponsors are here for us and we're here for them. I've never had a situation where a sponsor was aggressive about wanting a statement or of some sort fashioned by them to be shared with the world. Instead, they trust us to find what's most beautiful and what's best, and they bring their whole selves. If you're paying attention to the contributions from our sponsors during Twin Tech 2020, you'll feel this. Later on today, Chris Gould from Exelon will be sharing a personal story of his visit to Antarctica and how that connected with him as a leader within an energy company when thinking about climate change and our energy futures. Lee Shapiro, our own board member and a co-founder of Livongo, will share the Livongo story, one of the most successful digital health IPOs in history, and I dare say with their merger with Teladoc, the 800-pound gorilla in the digital health space. And I mean gorilla, of course, in a very good way. And finally, talk about bringing your heart and yourself to Twin. Jesus Montas of IBM will be sharing his personal story of battling stage 4 cancer. But as you'll hear tomorrow in our finale segment from Jesus, he connects it to each of us personally and professionally in a very optimistic and thoughtful perspective. So with this, we're going to run a pre-recorded video that I was able to create with Media Vision Productions not too long ago to give you a little bit of insight into the concept of the digital Rubicon, why we're here, where we might be going, and what to be thinking about for the next day and a half of TwinTech 2020. And then following that video, you'll be joined not by me, but by Howard Tallman and Izzy, who are going to talk about Izzy's phenomenal place, the home we're in now, Impact House. Thanks so much again, and I look forward to being back with you later on this morning. Welcome to TwinTech 2020, and welcome back to cyberspace. Let me express my sincerest thanks for being with us during these days. I know we all suffer from the rapid transition we've faced over the past few months, and particularly from what has become known as Zoom fatigue. But I want to point out, while we're together, the fact that imagination can overcome. In fact, all of our experience in life actually originates at some point in history through imagination. So I want you to leverage the power of your own imagination while you're with us over these few days to imagine we're all together, to imagine we are all here. In a way we are. We're all on this planet at the same time, coterminous, co-located. But I want you to believe and feel that while you see our friends on the screen, we actually are together through this experience. Well, so with that in mind, I'd like to reflect for a moment on this image that's behind me. These are images from the David Rumsey map collection at Stanford University. This image is actually a 19th century rendering, a series of maps of ancient Rome based on other documents and the ruins of ancient Rome. And it struck me for a number of reasons. Number one, it's beautiful. It's exciting to look through and try and decipher what each of these components of daily life was in that ancient city. But also because, as you stand back from it, the linearity, the mathematical precision of the vision reminds me very much of electronic circuits. It reminds me very much of any activity that human beings do in order to attempt to create order in a very uncertain universe. Whether that's building a city like Rome that was intended to and did last for 1,000 years, or that's building a computational system to hold our data, to understand us, to serve us, to support us in perhaps other darker intents. In both of these cases and so many others, we order things and structure them in order to create some level of certainty in an uncertain world. So the metaphor for TwinTech 2020, the digital Rubicon, actually came to me from observing these maps rather than the other way around. While we experience TwinTech 2020 together, I want you to keep present in your mind the following questions. These are very twin questions. First of all, what next? We are currently going through this miasma of pandemic. Where do we see this going after the pandemic? Where do you see it going? What does it mean for you, your family, your community, your business, for the world? Second, what should we do? What should we do as Twin? We're interested. Let me know if you have ideas. What should we do at your companies, your organizations, families? And most of all, because it all starts with us as individuals, what's inside, what we will bring outside. What should you do and why? What should you do and why? And this is an essential question that will help us not only get through this pandemic, but create the worlds we desire to live in the future. So let's engage this theme of the digital Rubicon. Now, most of us know the metaphor of crossing the Rubicon. There's no turning back. Once you have passed, there's no way to return, and you have been committed. Some of us know the historical foundation of this, and this was Julius Caesar in 49 AD carrying his army, his 13th Legion, across the Rubicon River to Rome. Now, Caesar knew that day, as did everyone in his retinue, that at the moment they'd crossed that river, they had effectively declared war on the Roman Republic. There was a centuries-old stricture in Rome that no commander could bring an army to Rome without the express written permission of the Roman Senate. So everyone with Caesar that day knew that they were on their way either to complete victory or utter defeat, meaning certain death. So the commitment was made at that moment. Now, what's interesting to me about this with respect to where we are today with the pandemic is it's similar in the sense that there's certainly no turning back. It's similar in the sense that we have all crossed an extraordinary barrier in the world. But what's very different about it is Caesar's act was volitional. Caesar and his army decided to make this crossing, whereas none of us actively decided to confront this pandemic. Nonetheless, c'est la vie, and forward we go. Now, returning to this notion of the Rubicon, we all have this mythological idea of the Rubicon River as a great crossing, perhaps something like this, raging river of power and an adversary to be forded at great cost and risk. Or perhaps you have an image like this in mind. And there is in a period photo, of course, Julius Caesar himself, the gallant trip across the Rubicon River, or perhaps you even have something in mind like this. And that, of course, you'll recognize is probably not Julius Caesar. In fact, that's Napoleon Bonaparte, and this is an image of his great victory at the Battle of Friedland. This is a 19th century painting, and why is it here with us in a conversation about Julius Caesar and the Rubicon? Well, because everything Napoleon did was explicitly to mimic and carry on the legacy of Julius Caesar. His crossing of the Rubicon, his becoming a first consul of the new French Republic, and then eventually usurping power and going one step beyond in Napoleon's thinking, Julius Caesar by becoming the French emperor. Now, I want everyone to understand that I'm not advocating for us all to go out and try and become a dictator. Please, by all means, do not do this. But the audacity, the boldness, and the hopefulness that each of these leaders showed to their troops, to their people, about where the future could go, about where they were trending, was something we can all learn from. But in reality, this dramatic mythological Rubicon is a fiction. In fact, the real Rubicon looks something like this. Pretty sad. Pretty uninspiring. In fact, you could walk across this, you'd just get a little wet. It turns out that the Rubicon River was not a physical barrier at all. It was not a mighty Mississippi or a piranha-infested Amazon through the jungles of South America. It was simply an oversized creek. And the Roman leadership for centuries had made this line, literally line in the sand, to say, no one shall cross who might threaten the Roman Republic without declaring war on us. It was a conceptual barrier, a social contract. And it was only because of Caesar making the decision to make this simple crossing that history was created 2,000 years before. So because of this creation of history, of course, we all remember the glory of Caesar. And again, we all know there were enormous downsides, horrible impacts to so many people over centuries, but also extraordinary achievement in this moment. And the glory of Caesar has resonated through the centuries. This series of images comes from the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, and I want to say a deep thanks to the Metropolitan Museum for offering a large portion of their collection to the world for free for anyone to use as they see fit. This is quite a gift. I referred to their collection often, and for Digital Rubicon I did the same, and I found this series of gorgeous panels from the 16th century, an Italian group of panels from the 16th century. It represents Caesar's triumphs, which were parades through Rome to celebrate a great victory or a supposed great victory. And this, of course, this gentleman seated here is a representation of Caesar. So the glory of Caesar, the glory of Napoleon, I'd like to add to that the glory of our sponsors. Literally true that if it weren't for these companies and others who are supporting us, we could not be with you here today. We could not do all the things we aspire to do in the world. We could not, frankly, be twin. And it is because of their support, but even more than this, because they believe and understand the mission and vision of this community, this global connective we have called Twin. So Anthem Innovation is helping us look at digital health and wellness later on this afternoon at Twin Tech. If you're interested in that, join the segment in the afternoon for a few hours about the future of digital health and wellness. Exelon Corporation is helping us for a number of years now look at the future of energy, the energy transition, sustainability, and this year we're going to look at the level of cities and how the roles they play in helping to create a sustainable future. And of course, Griffith Foods. Griffith Foods not only is a great food company, food products, product design company based here in Chicago, but an extraordinarily purpose-driven organization. Their chairman, Brian Griffith, says, "We have business purpose to be successful and remain profitable for the legacy of our company, for the service of our customers and our people, our employees, but also we have a larger purpose, and that is to help understand how to nourish the world to 2050. And it is this effort that Griffith has been fundamental to helping Twin advance, which is the Twin catalyst for the food and agriculture industry. How can we ever feed a world trending toward 9 or 10 billion people later this century without high quality, nutritious food? And how can we do that without having an exceptionally effective and sustainable agricultural system? Now, I'd like to bring all of this together and note that if we don't have great access to sustainable energy, then we can't have high quality food available at scale. And if we don't have high quality, nutritious food available at scale, we can't pretend to ever have health and wellness. So these three prosperity sectors will be the focus of our afternoon today together at Twin Tech. I hope you'll join us. I'd also like to thank and call out all of our team sponsors. These are companies that are actively involved in the development of Twin Tech. Many of them have been involved for many years with us, and they provide the support and encouragement to allow us and the resources to allow us to do the things that we do. I'm also pleased to say that not only do we have executives from each of our sponsor companies with us during these 2 days and tomorrow, but we also have, for the first time in Twin's history, offered our live streaming link to all of the employees of all of our sponsor companies. I'm excited for them to have a bit of what we hope to be the Twin magic. Thank you again to our sponsors. So more than just speakers on a screen, we hope, we aspire that with Twin Tech, we're asking a question, how can online be better than in person? I know that's not the case. Believe me, we all know we'd rather be together around a table, at a theater, over a drink, but that's not the reality we face. The reality we face also says that digital technologies and virtual will rapidly become better and better, inexorably to the future. So we must ask the question now, not how can digital be good enough? How can digital be kind of like, but how can digital actually be better? And we're starting right now. So through some of the methodologies and approaches you experienced yesterday during our first day of Embark, to some of the ways we're engaging topics today around Explore, and then certainly in our larger event where we're bringing so many more people under the tent and Engage, our call to action, we're trying new formats and new approaches, not just to sharing information and discussing. Keep in mind that if all you want are great speakers, go to YouTube, it's free. We're actually bringing our Twinians together from around the world, one-on-one, on screens, to talk to each other, to meet, to re-meet, to reconnect, to build trusted relationships. This is our objective. Now, before we continue, I'd like to return to Caesar to take a lesson from the conqueror. Regardless of your perspective on him, pro or con, likely both, all historians agree he had 3 traits beyond most others: strategy, agility, and initiative. He had one of the most strategic minds in history. He could see out in multiple directions and angles to prepare for different eventualities, but he also knew, as all great strategists do, that no battle plan survives contact with the enemy. So you have to be agile. You have to be able to shift as conditions change. And of course, take the initiative, seize the day, carpe diem, when the opportunity and the threat arise. And I'd ask you to reflect on this. I'd ask you to reflect where you are through this crisis, where your company perhaps, or your organization is. We're seeing companies that are rising to the occasion, doing things they never thought possible before. How motivating that is, how exciting and purpose-driven. We're seeing individuals and organizations support people around the world that had never even seen themselves in that kind of a role. And it's something we can all learn from. But at the same time, I know you've seen it too, we also see many organizations, companies, investors, individuals, universities who are standing back, who are holding back, who are holding their breaths and hoping that the future will become the past and all will return back to normal, and then we can finally get back to work. I guarantee you that strategy is going to fail. So how can we ensure that we take the initiative, that we intentionally create the futures we desire to create and be ready when the time is right? Remember throughout Twin Tech, our twin question: what will you do and why? As always, my sincere thanks, and to the future.